It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is a friend, Brigitte McKee. And thank you for joining me today, Bridget.
Thanks for having me, Donna.
So Bridget and I met last year. We were on a fly fishing trip that brought together both veterans of the U.S. military and breast cancer survivors, and we are both.
Yes, we are.
Okay, tell us about your time in the military.
I joined the Navy when I was 17 as a Navy ROTC midshipman. I was going to school in California. I was part of the UC Berkeley ROTC unit while I attended Stanford, and I was commissioned in 1998 as a surface warfare officer.
And where were you stationed?
I was stationed all over. So when I was, right after I was commissioned, I went to surface warfare school up in Newport, Rhode Island, and I was stationed on a destroyer out of Mayport, Florida, an Aegis cruiser out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and last but not least, I was stationed at the Naval Academy here in Annapolis.
And you are now, you decided to get out of the Navy. You're a mom also. You have two young kids, yes?
I do.
What are their ages?
My son just turned 7, and my daughter will be 9 next month.
What prompted you to leave the Navy?
So I transitioned out of the Navy actually in 2004. You know, it was a tough decision. I loved my time in the Navy. It had its ups and downs like everything else, but I also saw myself I never quite saw myself as a career naval officer. I saw it as a life experience I wanted to have, be able to serve, give back, but also I wanted a full life. And the career I had at sea, while it was really rewarding, it was a full-time engagement, and I didn't see it as being compatible at the time with having children. Although I was single when I transitioned out of the Navy, but I moved back to California and San Diego and started working.
Here you are. What year? This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
It is.
You have breast cancer?
I do. I was diagnosed with stage 3 lobular breast cancer back in 2014. So it is now 2019.
5-year mark is a big deal.
A 5-year mark is a big deal.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big deal for me this past summer. 2017, I was diagnosed with advanced breast cancer, which is also known as metastatic breast cancer. So my lobular breast cancer that was diagnosed originally in my breast, and my lymph nodes I found out had spread to mostly my bones.
And what was that like? Finding that out?
It was earth-shaking, terrifying. The first time I was diagnosed, it was a little bit of, to use a military term, like shock and awe. I had a lot of confidence in my physical health. I'd sort of taken care of myself, always exercised, nutrition, thought I was, didn't think I was that person at high risk for breast cancer, so it was a total shock. I guess the awe came in the radicalness of the treatment that I had to go through to get through the first part, and my body's ability anybody's ability really to, with the right care and treatment and nutrition, to sort of be resilient and bounce back. So it was shock and awe part 2 of how is this going to work. And I think your biggest fear as a breast cancer survivor, one of your biggest fears is that it's going to come back. And actually I had pushed that fear way to the back because I was part of a military family, knew I was moving back to Annapolis. I was, working on my resume, looking for jobs, putting my house on the market, doing all the things you do to prepare yourself for a move when I got that news. So it was a combination of shock, grief, what happens now, how is this going to work, and then a real stillness, actually.
We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Brigitte McKee. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Bridget has metastatic breast cancer. What is your feeling with Breast Cancer Awareness Month? Is this, you don't see this the same way, nor do I see it the same way as many others, that it's about a t-shirt or a pin or donate to this organization or donate to that organization and all of that is good?
It's become really commercialized. Before I had breast cancer, I noticed Breast Cancer Awareness Month and noticed how it seemed to be pretty pervasive, whether you were at the grocery store or the department store, or and breast cancer didn't really affect me that much. So it was something I noticed. And then it grew to be a really big deal. Donna, I appreciate Breast Cancer Awareness Month, to be honest. I think it's great that there are so many organizations that are focused on breast cancer awareness. The issue, though, that has happened, I think, in the last 20 years, so it's a two-sided thing where, I can personally say I've benefited from the research that the last 2 decades and the money that's been raised that's gone to breast cancer research for new medicines and drugs. I've benefited from that personally. The sticky point now, though, for a lot of women with breast cancer, particularly a lot of younger women with breast cancer, is the reality that when a breast cancer becomes advanced or metastatic, there is no cure. So you're going to be in treatment for life. And for all the money and that has gone towards research, there's been it's been underfunded about the question of what causes breast cancer to come back or recur in some patients. It's really kind of a mystery. And the reality is 1 in 7 women in the U.S. will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And of those women diagnosed with breast cancer, 1 in 3 will have a recurrence or will metastasize. And so it's a really high percentage that gets overlooked. So the problem with Pink Month that a lot of people have a real hard time with is that it's advertising this, that there's a cure. Really, there really is no such thing as a cure at this time.
You shared an article on your Facebook within the past few days by Glamour magazine. It's called "This Breast Cancer Ribbon Has a Different Take on Pink. Here's what it means." And within that article was a statistic: only 2% to 5% of all breast cancer funds raised go toward researching treatments for metastatic breast cancer, the only kind of breast cancer that kills. That's kind of scary.
Yes.
Especially to somebody that's suffering from it, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
You moved to Annapolis. You're working at the Naval Academy now as a civilian. We ran into each other at the mall after what, Bridget?
After my chemotherapy treatment,
Right.
I get treated at Anne Arundel Medical Center, and I finished my treatment. And I was going to the grocery store after my treatment to pick up some fresh fruits and vegetables and milk for my kids, and I realized I was pretty hungry. And so I said, I need to, and I also wanted to go for a walk. I'd been sitting in a chair for the better part of an hour and just wanted some fresh air. So I know it's not a good thing to go grocery shopping when you're hungry. So I said, I'm going to walk to the mall, get myself a good snack, and walk around for a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to the grocery store before I go home and rest. And that's when I ran into you.
Yep. And part of the discussion was that of all the things you don't need to worry about right now, is you don't need to worry about paying back the U.S. government for time off. But this came up in conversation, and you, as a former naval officer and a current Naval Academy civilian, said to me, I can't ask people for leave. And I said to you, I can. And I shared this on Facebook, and it's gotten a fair amount of attention. But you currently do owe the U.S. government money for the leave time you've already taken.
Yes. So what happened was, and it's sort of getting resolved, I think. Currently, yes, my pay is getting deducted. And the reason is I took emergency medical leave and extended medical leave back in July and early August for probably close to 5-6 weeks. One of the things with metastatic breast cancer is it's deadly and it kills unless you can find a treatment that works for you. And it's really kind of a misunderstood thing, but basically you go from treatment to treatment, hoping that it will work. And it's kind of an analogy I once heard is it's kind of like you're in a jungle swinging from one vine to the next.
So in the interim, you were feeling pretty crappy.
I was feeling pretty crappy. And so what happened was I had a medicine that was working really well for me, and then it stopped working. And then I had a lot of symptoms and things were out of control. And then I started a new medicine, was hoping that it was working, but it wasn't working. And then I was hospitalized. And then I started, when I got out of the hospital, I started a new type of chemotherapy that thankfully it has been working.
It was
so I missed a lot of work.
It was several weeks of you being down and out, really down and out.
Yeah, yes. And then fortunately, I was able to feel a lot better and started going back to work as much as I could. And
now
so
you're on this new regimen.
I'm on this new regimen. So basically, the government paid me while I was hospitalized, and then my pay once I sort of went back to work and sorted out my hours of when I'd been there, when I'd not been there, they had to deduct the pay that I'd received. So it's sort of been this
precarious balance.
A precarious balance. And I guess the positive thing, though, is that there's this program called the Voluntary Leave Transfer Program, which is what I told you about. And what's amazing is that other federal employees can donate their annual leave balances. That goes to my sick leave account. So when I'm exhausted, I've only been working at the academy as a civilian for a year, and so I didn't have extensive leave balance to begin with. And so once I exhausted my annual leave and my sick leave, then I got into a situation of leave without pay, and now people can donate their leave hours, and then it goes towards my sick leave, the leave that I take for the absences that I had, and then my current treatment. It's hard to pin down, but the days I have chemotherapy, I stay home from work, so it's 1 day a week, and then for 2 weeks, and then the next week, hopefully, I won't have any medical appointments. But
again, it's called the Voluntary Leave Transfer Program.
I'm really grateful because the message you put out, a lot of people responded and asked how they could help, and I have gotten several donations. And I think the optimistic part is I think it'll all shake out. It'll take another month or so probably for my pay to adjust and for the government to say that I don't owe them money, but
That's awesome.
I think it's going to work out. Yeah, so it is awesome. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take another short break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is my friend Bridget McKee. She's suffering from metastatic breast cancer. She lives right here in Annapolis, 2 young kids. She's a young mom. She's a veteran. She's working at the Naval Academy as a civilian, and she's pretty much all around awesome, I would say. Resources for those that are going through breast cancer themselves. You've taken advantage of quite a few. Living in this area, you were an outsider. You didn't know many people, but I know there's one particular organization that you should give a shout out to where you've met a ton of people. Go ahead.
The Annapolis Dragon Boat Club has been my family here. I started dragon boating in Charleston, my last community, coming out of my radiation therapy, knowing that it's basically fitness tailored for breast cancer survivors. Dragon boats have been around for thousands of years. The motion for paddling it's helpful in preventing lymphedema, which a lot of breast cancer patients have. But more importantly, it gets you out on the water, and I love being on the water. And then it's a community of survivors as well as just cancer supporters, people who have a genuine interest in seeing you not just survive but thrive.
There's been some other organizations around the area that you've mentioned to me that you've used. I know I've used some of them. Let's talk about Wellness House.
Yes, Wellness House is amazing. It's a nonprofit organization designed to support cancer patients, caregivers, and their families. And so it's been a particularly wonderful place for not only me, but my children. They have kids coping groups, which are groups that meet on a weekly basis, and also they have monthly activities for children to get together. And once a year, they host a Paint Your Rainbow camp, which is for children whose parents are going through cancer treatments. And the camp counselors are adults, but there's also a lot of youth involved, mainly high schoolers who were once children who had been part of these support groups. So the counselors' lives have been touched by cancer, and I think it's really helpful for a kid to hear from a kid. Yeah.
Casting for Recovery.
Casting for Recovery was wonderful. It's a nationwide program available to all breast cancer survivors. They host retreats to get women out in nature, to connect with nature, and to kind of let go of the pressures and stresses that result around treatment. They treated us,
It was transformative.
Transformative, yeah, really special. They teach you a new skill. I had no fly fishing experience. So you're out in nature, you're bonding with a group of women who've been through similar traumas, and I don't know how to describe it. It was like a 72-hour breath of fresh air.
It was exactly that. And I would describe it the same way. It was amazing. Who else am I missing that might have been part of your journey on this?
So Metaviver is an organization I really want to give a shout out to as well. It's based here in Annapolis, and they're really the organization that has created this awareness around underfunding for metastatic breast cancer. And they're a nonprofit organization, but they have single-handedly raised I think upwards of $7-8 million over the last 10 years or so, and that 100% of that money has gone to funding research for metastatic breast cancer.
Amazing and necessary.
Amazing and necessary, and they have more than a local reach. It's a global reach as well.
The woman that started the local chapter, Stage 4, CJ?
Yes, she's still here.
Yep.
She's still here.
What else would you like to relay about you or about this situation that helps people to understand how tumultuous it is, how crazy it is?
It's pretty crazy. It's an emotional roller coaster as well as a physical one, and it affects. I know that it affects me, but it also affects people around me and family around me. I think the hardest part is there's this really where it's a really interesting time to be a cancer patient, because there's so much change going on in the world of cancer research and medications. And I've been fortunate to have access to really good care and be taking medicines that weren't even around when I was diagnosed in 2014. There's a lot of people, including myself, you have a perception that metastatic breast cancer is like a death sentence. And I've really tried to embrace my breast cancer diagnosis overall as a life sentence. It shakes you to the point where you say, how do I want to live my life? What's important in my life? And you start answering those questions. And, a lot of people aren't faced with that until they're in their 60s maybe.
Right.
And I'm in my early 40s. So that is hard. But I also want people to know that I'm living my life. I'm enjoying my life to the fullest extent possible. So there's the phrase terminal illness, but now there's a new phrase called life-limiting illness.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a bucket list?
Here and there, I do. I don't have...
What's the craziest thing on it?
Oh, the craziest thing on my bucket list?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Donna, I don't have anything too crazy. I want to go up to Niagara Falls and see crazy stuff in nature. That I feel like, I don't know if it was the fly fishing retreat that my parents took me on a bucket list trip to Iceland and Norway in 2018. And
did you see the Northern Lights?
I did not see the Northern Lights. That is still on my bucket list. But I saw tons amazing waterfalls. Being in nature is very healing. It's very healing.
Bridget, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Donna. It's a pleasure.
Continued strength and hope for you. You are among the strongest people I know. Keep it up.
Thank you.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.